Lord be with you. Let us pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for this day and the opportunity to be together. As we look at how we have stewarded the resources entrusted to us, we ask for your guidance. We ask for your grace. In Christ's name, amen. So I put, oh my gosh, no signal. There is a signal. Come on. We'll see how long the signal works. Okay, I put the financial reports on the tables. Maybe you have them. I printed off copies for you to look at. This is what the vestry gets each month. There's a top sheet. DJ, if you don't know, DJ is our treasurer. And so Sue Mitchell is the financial manager. Sue handles everything day to day. She pays things. She gets invoices. She handles all that. At the end of the month, all that stuff goes across the dinner table, I guess, to DJ. And he fills out the spreadsheets, makes sure everything balances, all of that. He presents a report to the finance committee, which is chaired by Gary back there. So we have the brain trust in here. And as long as they're both smiling, y'all can breathe deeply. And so that's how it happens month to month. Is that what works? The finance committee then looks at this, provides any recommendations, figures out creative ways to solve problems or tackle opportunities, which is what we're doing this year. And so we get this top sheet. DJ takes all this information, all 17 pages or whatever, boils it down into a couple of paragraphs. And then you'll see all the different charts, and we'll go through some of this. But the first paragraph here is kind of the top line that we need to know about as far as last year. So last year, income, pledge, non-pledge, plate was up above budget. Expenses were down below budget. And so at the end of the year, in 2022, we ended the year with like an $11,000 surplus, which is decent. We're ending last year, 2023, with a $91,000 surplus. So, and that's two different things. Some of that is we didn't spend all the money we said we were going to spend, and we can talk about that. That's not always a bad thing. But because of y'all's generosity. There's Sue. There's the other part of the financial triumvirate back there. Because of y'all's financial generosity. Pledge was down a little bit, but that always happens. People move away or things happen. So pledge was a little bit under budget. We can look at that. Non-pledge income was significantly above budget because, remember we looked at last week, we have growth in the parish. And so when those 25 new people who added to our ASA, 30 new people that added to our ASA last year, when they start giving in the middle of the year, even if they're pledging, it doesn't go to the pledge category. It goes to the non-pledge income. And so then this year's pledge income, because they've been around here a while, will move to the pledge. We'll talk about that when we get to 2024 budget. Before we start, does anyone have questions that we can try to get to in this presentation? No questions? Yeah.
I remember last year there was an expense that the diocese gave us a 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year.
1 year?
Well, 1.5 years because we joined kind of mid-year. So we'll talk about that. We are paying that. It's called diocesan assessment. So that's what happens. So here's what we do. Let's see. Let's go through this and we'll get to that. This is just our balance sheet, statement of assets and liabilities. And so you can look at this. If you know what this means, you're doing better than I am. But here it is. All it means is assets involve everything from general funds up here. This is cash on hand, deposits in transit, right? Just like your own, you have a check that hasn't cleared, or you've got that credit card expense that's pending. Like we have those too. So we account for money that we've spent, but like hasn't left the account yet because I haven't deposited my paycheck or whatever the reason is. We've got that there. We got the benevolence funds. We account for that every month. No one knows how we spend that. That's part of the deal. Folks know how much is in there, but Gavin and I use that for needs. And so when DJ comes to me and says, hey, I need help with the light bill, you all don't need to know that DJ needs help with the light bill, right? You all should know that there's money in here and that I'm actually using the money, but you'll never know how that money is being used. That's one of the things. The benevolence fund is used for lots of different things, but it's for good works, kind of. And so this is a plug. Next week, when y'all show up at 6 o'clock next Sunday night, bring your checkbook, because the offering that night goes to help pad Gavin's discretionary fund. And so please be generous. Yeah. So then we move down a little bit more. We got savings. We'll talk about some good news with the savings here in a little bit. The building fund, this is money that's set aside. This building fund is actually, that's stuff earmarked for the air conditioners. That's $60,000. We've already spent some on air conditioners. We're going to continue to draw that down. So this is temporarily restricted funds. This is money we know is going to be spent on something, and so we can't just like willy-nilly. Then we move into the permanently restricted, and these are things that we can't do anything unless the vestry says we can. So some capital funds, these are endowments, essentially. A building fund, which between the two of these, we got $731,000 sitting in investment accounts. That's the money that's going to enable us to do the work in here that we talked about 2 weeks ago, right? So we're in a good position to do all of this work. When we start to do work on the other building, we're going to have some conversation about what we're going to do there. But that's what those permanently restricted funds are. We are about to start. Brian Hendricks is chairing our endowment committee. And so we're about to start work on enlarging and expanding the endowment. So it's not just, right now it's just building funds. But we know some of us are not getting any younger. And so we're thinking about estate planning. We're thinking about what we're going to do to leave a legacy. Those are all questions that we know folks wrestle with. And so we're going to have a place for if Keen wants to endow the choir someday, or if Rick, you want to endow the junior wardens and give whatever it is, whatever. So we're going to figure out how y'all can, make estate gifts and how we can set that up. Brian is, hopefully next year, this time we'll have a lot more to say about that. He's already started some conversations about the endowment funds. And then down here, building and content improvements, land. I'm going to say $750,000 for this land in Southlake. That's a super low ball number if y'all price land anywhere. But we account for it in here. And so here you'll see the balance of things. Liabilities, you'll see we account for those. This is income and expenses general. This is kind of the top sheet of the income and expenses. Then we get in to more minutia. But you'll see here, we had budgeted like $390,000 for pledge. We were about $10,000 under, $8,500 under. But then we had pledged only $4,500. We had budgeted for non-pledge, but that exceeded it by $27,000. Plate was over. Other contributions were significantly over. Is that where the curate funds went? Yeah. So the reason that's so much higher is because we didn't account for the way the diocesan funds for the curate were going to fit into the budget. So that won't look like that this year. So you'll see total income, we were over $500,000. We had budgeted income to be about $460,000. Expenses, we did a ton of work on the building. It floors me. I have no idea how buildings and grounds is under budget. They were over budget kind of all year. I think we had sandbagged toward the end of the year. Knowing, right, one of our biggest expenses is taking care of this place. But Dick and Rick were good stewards, and everyone who involves there. And so that was under. Program expenses was under. Okay. So the other one that was significantly over, I was reading this wrong. Payroll expenses. You'll see everything else is, within kind of a good range. We were pretty much on for pretty much everything. Payroll expenses, you'll see that we were over budget by $20,000. That's because of how we were accounting for the curate. We weren't sure how it was going to come from the diocese, and so we've corrected that, and so we won't have that overage. Because you'll see the total income, we were over, where was it? Other contributions operating. That amount, which includes the income from the diocese, is offset by this shortfall here in budgeted expenses. One thing we do when we budget, what's here next? No, we'll talk about that in a minute. We budget month to month. And so we don't just say at the end of the year, we're going to spend $500,000. And so we're going to spend $42,000 every month. DJ, Sue, Gary, everyone looks at it and they know insurance is due this month. And whatever property taxes are due this month. And so month to month, the budgeted expenses look different. We don't just divide by 12. We know when some things are going to be higher and some things are going to be lower. And so that allows us to track. And we'll talk about, when we get to the 2024 budget, we'll talk about how we prepare, because also giving. This year was a little bit different. Y'all went crazy in the summer. Normally in the summer, giving gets thin, right? Because y'all go on vacation or y'all, whatever. And so we have to look a little bit more closely. We didn't see that too much this year. Income stayed pretty consistent. And so we had easier conversations in the summer, because we know, like, even if it gets thin in the summer, then fall kicks back up, programs kick back up, y'all come in, and then Christmas comes in, all of that. We know the end of the year will look one way. So we're able to budget and we're able to forecast month by month and see when we might need to be creative and have some more difficult conversations. This, you'll have to look at your printouts. It doesn't look super great on here. This is the various temporarily restricted funds. Good News Garden has money. Outreach has money. What else? Youth group, prayer shawl. So we have this big spreadsheet. So we know that when they go and buy yarn, they have $1,000 or whatever it is, right? And people can also contribute to that. So if you want to help them get yarn, you can contribute specifically to that, right? This is what happens with outreach. This year, we're budgeting money for outreach in the 2024 budget. We hadn't in the past. It had all been through designated gifts, particularly at Christmas time. So you'll just see the various ministries. For Saints is a pass-through. So like when we do the red envelopes, it parks in our budget for a month or however long it takes us to then turn around and send that money off. But we account for it. So if y'all ever have questions about where's this money I gave to whatever, right? We account for it. We have spreadsheets galore. And so ask us. Memorial Garden, I'm looking at Kathy back there. Like, if you want to know, can we do this and this? We're going to say, yeah, we have this money. Or if people say, oh, I want to give some money to the Memorial Garden to take care of the upkeep, we're going to put it there. We're going to be able to track it. And so y'all can know where it's parked. Any questions about that? About 2023? Or about budget, finances, expenses in general? Any concerns? All right, this is quick. Okay, if you keep turning those pages, the last couple, this is the 2024 budget. And so it's like 3 pages, so we can talk through some of it. First, want to talk about expenses, income, because we've made some estimations and some predictions. And so you'll see some numbers up here that, if you've been around this place for a while, might make you a little uneasy. We talked about it yesterday. So income is this top section up here. Pledge income, you'll see even this isn't just the total pledge divided by 12, because we know some people paid their full pledge last week. Some people even paid it last month. And so we account January's got a huge pledge income because a lot of people do that. Other people have said they're going to pay quarterly or they're going to pay whatever. And so when they tell us that, when we lay out the income for the budget, we can say, this is what we expect to come in February, March, April. We don't just divide by 12. And so we can have a better sense of trends that way. And so you'll see across the yellow line is the 2024 budget. The last 2 columns are last year's. And so pledge income is up about $30,000 in the budget from last year, about $40,000 from actual. Last year we budgeted $390, we received $380. We're budgeting pledge income to be $420. And that is all the cards that y'all submitted back on the Feast of St. Martin and all the online pledge. Put all those in a stack, add them all together, that's that number. There's no magic tricks with this number other than simple addition, right? And so that's how we arrive at that number. The non-pledge income, that's a pretty significant jump over last year's budgeted amount. It's even a jump over last year's actual. So last year we budgeted about $45,000, which is what we do every year, right? We just kind of assume about that much is either going to come in from new folks joining the church or folks who had a good week at the horse races and they're going to throw some extra, or whatever it is. We just anticipate that. This year, that number is going up, and so some of that is a prediction. Because this $420,000 for pledge income, that doesn't include about 20 pledging units, is how we talk about it. It's either individuals or families, whatever. So about 20 people who pledged in 2023 did not submit a pledge card in 2024. We know the names of these folks. We know who they are. They're still active. They're still giving. We know they're going to give. They just, maybe the husband thought the wife did it and the wife thought the husband did it, and somehow a pledge card never ended up in the plate. And so we, in good faith, expect that money to come in. Also, speaking of, like if you have a question of if you submitted a pledge in 2023 and you never got a confirmation or whatever, you can talk to Sue. She can let you know you might be in one of those 20. It's okay. We still know that you're going to be faithful in your giving. That accounts for, what was that total, DJ?
It's about 40,000.
It's about 40.
What, the other side of it?
The 20 people?
That's about $40,000.
About $40,000. So that, so those 40,000 that we're anticipating people who didn't pledge but are still going to continue to give, that's the difference between what we're budgeting in 2024 and what we budgeted in 2025. But if you'll notice, our non-pledge income in 2023, because we grew at a quicker rate than we had in 2022, was up. And so there was some discussion in Finance Committee yesterday about some uneasiness about that number, right? People, especially people who've been around here for a while, we haven't always had happy conversations when it comes to budget and finance. We get to have good conversations and we get to talk about opportunities this year. I think everyone left yesterday's Finance Committee meeting believing that that's a healthy number that is attainable. The other stuff, plate receipts, that's when y'all throw an extra dollar in the plate. Other contributions is when we lease out space to people and groups use space, that falls into there. Christmas and special offerings, you'll see those are obviously budgeted in November and December. That's income that y'all give. That traditionally goes toward outreach. We budgeted outreach separately. And so our outreach line item budget is more than that. And so regardless of what income comes in, we're pledging to spend more just out of the budget normally. And then curate support. We didn't have this last year the way it was. So curate support, you'll see we get quarterly payments to fund half of Gavin's stipend and housing and everything. So you'll see that all told, that puts our income at $570,000 and change. So then we move to expenses, and you'll see, I don't think it printed in color, so it's probably not easy to see. Colors that are in red up here are increases or things that we need to talk about as vestry is what those signify. So you see buildings and grounds, we know how much things cost. We know how much the cleaning service costs. We know how much the monitoring of the fire system costs. We know all that. But we usually think we know what utilities cost, but if you've been paying your light bill these last couple of years, you sometimes never know. And so that number has gone up. Insurance, property insurance has gone up. Y'all's probably has at home too, right? The things that y'all deal with at home in your budget when it comes to caring for your house are things that we deal with here as well. One thing, we're replacing all the air conditioners. That should have a not insignificant effect on our cooling bill because they'll no longer be 25-year-old units. And believe it or not, engineering has come a long way in 25 years. So you'll see all told, buildings and grounds is about $12,000 more this year than last year. Outreach, you'll see down here. I'm sorry, it's 12,000. I said 17. In here, we know how much we give. Union Gospel Mission, Presbyterian Night Shelter, those places we give. I need to submit these check requests to Sue this month. We just give them money every year, $1,000 to each of those. Four Saints gets its own money every quarter. Remember, we collect those red envelopes, and they got several $1,000s last year. I think it was 7,000 total. We also hold on to some. What was the other one? Union Gospel Mission down here. That's also the sack lunches that we do. In our previous diocese, there was a grant opportunity that funded that. That grant opportunity isn't in our current diocese, so we pay for that out of the outreach budget. When they buy that stuff and they do all that, that comes out of that. But it also, we don't budget to spend all of it, because sometimes things come up and, there's an earthquake in some country and where we can have money to support others. And so the money gets spent, but the money is not all budgeted like to the dollar at the beginning of the year, if that makes sense, for outreach, to give us some flexibility down the road. And like for that, I mentioned this year, a big outreach thing we're doing for the Linton Project is going to be for RIP medical debt. And so some of that will be crowdfunding, like you all donating online to that organization. But some of it, there may be some matching challenge and stuff using outreach funds for that. Office, again, this is stuff I know what my cell phone bill is, right? And so that's up here. We know how much professional expenses are. That's professional expenses is when Gavin has to drive to Camp Allen for his continuing education, or we drive to the hospitals to visit you. It's mileage. It's things we need to buy to enable us to do our jobs. And so we budget that. Yeah, Sam.
What is contributing to the website maintenance cost? Is it the server hosting cost, or is that just updating it?
No, we maintain it internally between Annika, our parish administrator, and myself. But we pay, it's not hosting, but we pay a WordPress developer to essentially be on call and help us with things. And so that's a monthly cost. I don't see that. Is that on the next page? Yeah. And so that's the monthly budget to keep them on. So if we need to redesign a page, or we had them this past year develop a different way for us to sort through sermons and things. So it's essentially someone to help us if we royally screw things up, but also if we have development questions. It's a professional company. Yeah, and so you'll see everything in here, office supplies, postage, all of that. Another place you'll see an increase is here. Yeah, Eloise.
Yeah, you have a line item for sexton, but you don't have any numbers. Who takes care of the cleanup of the church?
Where is that?
Cleaning services.
Cleaning services up here. It's the top line on buildings and grounds. And so we don't have a sexton. We have a cleaning service that's here every week. And so some of this is youth minister has been on the budget for several years with nothing in it. This year it's going to have it does have something in it. Same thing with sexton. We may get to the point where we have someone more than just a cleaning service coming in. So we're keeping it on the budget just to remind us. But without the school day to day, without the foot traffic day to day, we don't have a true sexton position. But the cleaning, that comes out of this top line, cleaning services. Yeah. Communication, you'll see a couple things. Advertising, marketing, email marketing. That's kind of a bulk thing. We're not going to spend $1,200 on strictly email marketing, but that's a placeholder. The vestry next week is going to have a retreat on Saturday where we're going to start doing some mission, vision, and values work to figure out who we are, what's our story, and then that's going to turn into how do we share that story. And so DJ's been part of these conversations from the beginning, and he put some money in the budget to help us tell that story. Whatever, we don't know what it looks like, right? Is it going to be collateral material, marketing material, things? Is it going to be video work? We don't know that yet, but we have a place. So that's why there's, $1,500 or $2,000 and change extra in communication for that. Worship, we know what bread costs. We know what wine costs. We know, we usually know what AV stuff costs. Like it's I think it's actually, no, Altar Guild is still more. But Altar Guild and AV costs, they're both up there because, right, 30 people every week worship with us online. That's an actual community. It's more people than are with us at 8:30. And so we do the things we need to do in order to make sure that works. So you'll see that's all in worship expense. Program expense. This is when we buy new things for godly play in there. We buy new stories, right? Or when we buy books that we're using for some adult formation thing. Vacation Bible School has a line item. Hospitality, Rebecca, right here. And so, that's a formation thing. That's a program thing. And so when we buy coffee, when we buy food for different events, that all has a line item. Name tags in here. This is a token amount. We ask folks, we invite folks to contribute to their name tag. Most do. But money is not going to prevent someone from getting a name tag. So we have an item in the budget for that. Nursery supplies, we know how much diapers and wipes cost. Any questions about that stuff? That's all. That's actually decreased some. The way we built the budget this past year is we put a bunch in for programs just to have a place to house it in the budget for 2023. We didn't spend it all. And we know we're probably not going to do the same this year. And so that total line item for program has gone down. Same with worship. So then payroll and benefits, you can see open book. You can see what I make. You can see, you can't actually see what Gavin makes. You'd have to do some math. So you can see continuing education. Y'all want me to continue to get better at my job. And so there's a line item in the budget for me to go out and do that. Up here, rector sabbatical. This for the longest time said 2025. And I was like, oh man, I would love to leave you people next year and take 3 months off. But no, it's not going to work. And so I asked DJ to change it. 2028 is actually when I'm planning for my sabbatical because that works out to as soon as I drop Walker off at college. You people won't see me again until Christmas. I'm just preparing y'all so you know. Curate here, we budget that. You actually can see what, because the way we've budgeted this year, you can see the full amount. Same thing with children's minister, youth minister. This has been a blank line, kind of like sexton, for several years, as long as I've been here, and for some years before that. This was Gary's thing. Gary, every year, would say, it's on here because we're going to do it. And I said, yes, sir. And so this year, we have an amount. It's a small amount. And if you come at 11:45 today and eat some pizza, you get to meet that person. It's Leah Robinson. She's a college student that's going to take that on, and she's going to help. Her focus is going to be on these third Sundays. We talked about this last week. This is going to be youth group, right? Where they do ridiculous games, they go out and do fun things, they do all of that. That Leah is going to help Liza and I with that. See nursery staff, parish administrator, salary. You'll see all of that payroll. This is like if you've ever run a business, you know you have payroll. You know what all that stuff is going to cost. There is a pretty significant increase in that. Some of that is because that includes the full amount of Gavin the way we budgeted it, which we didn't last year that way. Also, this includes a 5% raise for staff, for paid staff. We did a pretty significant catch-up raise 18 months ago because they hadn't received raises in a long time. And as y'all know, cost of living has gone up pretty significantly. And so that helped catch up. Cost of living, inflation is still going up. And so this year, we're doing a 5% raise for folks. And so that's another reason why that number has gone up. You'll see total operating expenses, a little under $560,000. If you remember, our expected total income was $572,000. So that gives us a number in the green of $13,500. And this number being in the green is a good thing. And my expectation just like last year, is income will exceed plan, hopefully, because you all are incredibly faithful. We are continuing to grow, and we're building a culture of stewardship and generosity and gratitude in this place. And so the income, I expect to meet or exceed. Expenses, we're very diligent about how we spend money, and we don't just spend it because it's in the budget. We spend it because we need to. And so I anticipate that the budget will be under. And so this $13,000, who knows? Maybe it'll end up $91,000 like this year. In that case, DJ is just going to give me a big kiss.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's all of that. We got like 15 minutes for questions, or like a stand-up routine. What questions do you have about how things work around here? Very rarely do we have Sue, Gary, and DJ in the same room. And the senior warden back there, he's awfully quiet. Yeah, Gary.
Okay, so one thing I just wanted to point out, for the first time in I can't tell you how many years, we're going to recommend to the vestry today to put some money in a savings account, in a high yield savings account. And that is a big deal.
Yeah, and so this is what I want to talk about, the opportunities. Usually, churches, not usually, but oftentimes churches are like, can we look under our couch cushions so we can make payroll, right? That's a reality for any nonprofit. We actually have the opportunity. We're going to put money to work for us. And so we have, $91,000 starting the year. And we know that's going to dwindle down some, maybe, depending on how things go. Certain months we may, but we don't need it all right now. And so instead of just parking it somewhere in a checking account where it's not going to earn anything, the finance committee is going to research high yield savings accounts. You maybe have them, an online bank where like mine's getting 4 3/4 right now. If we put $100,000 in there, we're going to have $5,000 at the end of the year that we didn't have at the beginning of the year, just like magic, right? It's amazing how this works. And so we're able to do that. We're still going to be able to get that money in case this whole place blows up and we need it. But we're not, rubbing nickels together. We're able to take advantage of some opportunities. Yeah. Any other questions? Stewardship, we've talked about a bunch. Jen Duncan of blessed memory, she moved to Charlotte, and so we'll just, if you've ever been to Charlotte, God bless her. No, I love Charlotte. It's a great town. She's there. I just signed her letter for the transfer, and I wanted to put a note in there, with stipulations that, do we get a player to be named later, or how does this work? She chaired our stewardship for a really long time, did a great job, kind of transformed how we did it around here. Bennett CPAC, who's right here, he is going to take that to the next level, partly because we have additional resources in the Diocese of Texas that we didn't have before. And so what Jen kind of built just with her own bare hands and some faithful people around her, Bennett's going to continue, and also has the resources of other congregations, of professional staff in diocesan office. And so he's been meeting. He has met with a cohort of stewardship folks from other churches. He has some great ideas of what things are going to look like. So you're going to hear us talk not just about money, but money is important when it comes to stewardship, but also what we do with our time and our talent. If you remember our stewardship card this year, didn't just ask about money. If you flipped it over, you could talk about what gifts do you have that you could share with the community? What time do you have that you could go sling bags of potatoes around at Four Saints, or whatever it looks like? And so we're going to find new ways to talk about that and grow in our understanding of and our practice of stewardship. So Bennett, he's another person. I mentioned Brian with the endowment committee. Anyone around here related with finances that I'm missing? No, I don't think so. Yeah.
I have just one question. We've talked about the building and that we have funding for the current recommendations that you are coming from. I'm kind of unnerved about where you're getting this other part of the building. It's like when you build a house, you just don't build a kitchen, you build everything. So where are we with that? I don't understand where we are.
Yeah, so we're still getting final figures, but we're fairly confident with the money we have, we can do this building.
Correct. I
Correct.
understand that.
And then that nothing changes over there. I mean, my old office will be vacant and all of that. while we look for maybe some grant opportunities from the diocese, while we talk to you all about a capital campaign, right? Like we're going to work together on this to figure out what we need to do. And so we're not going to have like, you know, open ceilings and sheetrock that's been torn down. Nothing over there is going to change. There'll just be some empty offices. But my belief is there's been a lot of folks who've been dreaming about this for a long time, and there's going to be some excitement around that, particularly when they see this and how nice it can look and what that could look like with it. And so there will be a capital raise, most likely, unless like just one of you wants to tap me on the shoulder and write me a check. Please do. My office is right down there to the right. But there's, you know, we'll talk with folks. I said last week, 2 weeks ago, we're not going to incur a bunch of debt to do this because I'm not going to hamstring the rest of our ministry with some note in a bank somewhere. If we leverage something, you know, temporarily, we're going to have a plan for how we're going to do it. But the one thing that when I came here and I started talking with some folks, we've had this money in the endowments for a very long time, and it's just been sitting there. I don't think that's being good stewards of the money. If we're able to renovate and improve something and we have the money for it, I think we have the duty to do that and to see what builds from there. I don't think it's going to stop with this building. I think there'll be energy and momentum to keep it going. But no, we don't have the cash on hand to expand the church yet. Yeah.
I know the electric bill has been going up. I know we're
We have. DJ's had several conversations with companies, and that's in the wings. It's kind of waiting for, you know, the final trigger. But yeah, a flat roof with a big space like this is kind of perfect for that. And so that's certainly in the plans.
something along those lines. Would we be battery or?
So that's hard to know. And we had these conversations about the warming shelters. For a place like this, we're not on an emergency power grid, right? We're not like, we can have all the plans in the world, but someone has to get up here and make sure our lights work before we can do anything. And so we can't invest, we can't build, we can't do everything assuming we're going to be that place, just without question. Because we came up here last Sunday and our pipes were frozen. We can't be that shelter, right? And so, like, the question is both. Yeah, I mean, that'll be a question that we get to with engineers and things down the way. But it's really tricky for us to plan to be an emergency shelter. Like cities can say these buildings are going to be this because they know they have emergency generators and they know they have all of that. We don't have that. My expectation is we probably won't have that necessarily. And so we can't build this place hoping to be something because our lights may turn on. If our lights do turn on, we can scramble and figure out something, but it's really hard to plan for that because we didn't have water last week. Yeah, we solved that problem, but yeah, Sam.
When was St. Martin's last major renovation?
They took the shag carpeting out of my office about 4 years ago. Most of it. They took the rest of it out 2 years ago. 30 years. This building was built in the 90s, right? Yeah, this was built in the 90s. That building over there was hand-built by parishioners 40-some years ago. And like the reason it looks like, I'm very fond of the siding now, mainly because when I grew up, that's what my parents' siding in my house looked like. And so like it's nostalgic for me. But the way I've heard it is it was hand-built, and some of the stuff is because a contractor in the congregation just like had extra of it in his barn. This is the story I've heard for some of it. And so it served us well. There's this concept called deferred maintenance. We don't actually, yeah, there are some things. I mean, we had to do some things with the roof and the ceiling in the church because we were getting some cracking and all. Like there's things, we don't have the problem some churches have that are literally falling down because we have taken good care. But, 30 years for this building is a long time. 40 plus years for that building is a long time. And so we had plans for a long time too. And so now we're going to do something with those plans. Well, we're going to try to do something with those plans. Yeah, thank you for that question. Your whole life, this building's looked the way it has. Most of my whole life, this building's looked the way it has. Yeah, the paint's different. Someone came in here in the middle of the night and painted. We had a flood down there. So we've had minor things, but nothing comprehensive. It's been, we had an opportunity to redo the floors in there. So. It's 10:15. Any other questions before we go get ready for church? We have a couple minutes. We have a couple cakes here. And so we're going to close. I'll dismiss us, and then we're going to sing happy birthday because it is Rebecca Haynes' birthday. And she helps us celebrate so many things around here that I thought it would be great. Other folks thought it would be great and told me it would be great. I want to give credit where it's due. And so go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.